So last week we saw about the authors of the Ramayana, and we saw Valmikiji's story, which is fairly well known. And recently I heard it being said by somebody else, and it was interesting the way they worded it, because he was so Valmiki Ratnakar was a daku, dacoit, a theft, thief. Naraji is the Santa Mahatma. And when Ratnakar threatens him, like, give me everything, he's like, take. And then he said, give me or I'll kill you. And Naraji wasn't scared at all. So Ratnakar actually notes, aren't you scared? And Naraji's reply is, no, but you should be. I thought that was really cool. So he said, of course, we couldn't do that in today's world. And Ratnakar says, but why? And it's because you have to face the consequences of all your action. And then the story continues, like I had said yesterday. Do you know how much? So new accumulating, and then to face that, so much more. So he becomes transformed. And this is really credit to Naraji. And sometimes Naraji gets described as a mischief maker or an instigator. Sometimes in colloquial language, it gets used like such an arid meaning. Not a very pleasant connotation, right? Like somebody who's just nosy. But actually, Naraji has transformed people's lives. And Valmikiji is like really going from someone who could murder to being a saint who could write the Ramayana. But we see also Naraji is the guru of Prahlad, born in this family of Ursuras, with Hiranyakashipu as his father, who was so drunk with power. And Prahlad had this immense purity. And that purity of Prahlad's is a lot of it's attributed to Naraji, who taught him in the womb and took care of the mother just to nurture Prahlad's heart full with devotion. We also see the reverse story. Again, this little boy so angry, it's almost like a tantrum. I can't get what I want, and I'm leaving the house, and off he storms off into the forest, and it's Naraji who guides him on how to do the tapas so that he can get the vision of the Lord. So Naraji is really, it's someone worthy of our respect, worthy of being called the Santa Mahatma. So in time, as Ratnakar becomes Valmiki, when he comes out of that anthill, and that anthill is really a symbol of the transformation that he's gone through, he has all these questions. Now that his mind is purified, now that he's dedicated to living this life of virtues. And so he says, is there such a person that can be considered perfect? And then he even goes to say what someone who is perfect is. I actually wrote it down, but I didn't bring it here, so let's see how much of it I remember. Somebody who is grateful, who is wise, who is loving to all people, someone who is free from anger and jealousy, someone who is capable and talented and skilled, someone who is full of virtues and praiseworthy. What else do I remember? I think there were like 3-4 more qualities in there. And really, when you think about it, do we know anyone who would fit this description? Just that free from anger and jealousy already is a little bit tricky too. That kind of negates most people we know, right? Full of virtue, sure, lots of people are full of virtue. Loving to everyone, sometimes. I mean, you didn't specify all the time. So, we can... Capable and skilled, plenty. Plenty are capable and skilled. Wise. Grateful, I thought, was an interesting quality that's on that list. Grateful. But this free from anger. And so the reason this question is mentioned first is Naraji says, yes, there is such a person. In all of history, one that stands out is Sri Ram, from the Ikshvakya lineage, who's alive right now, because Ramchandraji was alive at the same time as Valmiki. And this really surprises Valmiki. A lot of times we would think if we put something in the category of unachievable, we won't strive for it. Something like with me, if the yoga teacher says, let's do a headstand, no. Why? It's in my category of no. Not even going to strive for it. Of course, it infuriates the yoga teachers. But because I've put it in no category, it's not even considered. But if we put something in the category of it can be achieved, we get a little bit curious. Sometimes we get inspired. Sometimes determined. If you think of somebody who doesn't have a lot of financial support and then they hear of somebody else getting a scholarship and being able to go to one of these really awesome colleges, suddenly now possible. Right? Study really hard, get that scholarship. So the fact that when the question is asked, can I be perfect? Can anyone be perfect? We tend to say, we're only human, can't be perfect. So we have to change that, edit. We not only human can attain perfection. Maybe I'm not perfect yet, but it can be attained. Now, having understood that such a thing can be attained, Valmiki one day was wandering around in the forest and he sees these two birds, very beautiful, things in nature tend to be, and they get our attention because of their beauty. And so they were two cranes and they were sporting, and then they were mated. And in the midst of this process, a hunter shoots. And so the one bird dies, the male bird dies, and the female's watching. And Valmiki can feel the pain of this sudden separation. A lot of species, they mate for life, right? So, in seeing that this hunter was so insensitive, because you have to aim the arrow, you can see what's going on, and still went ahead and shot. And that's actually such an easy target, right? Because they distracted, which is not good sportsmanship. And I think there were rules at that period in time, and that's definitely against the rules in terms of conduct of hunting as well. So there was suddenly all this anger towards the hunter. And Valmiki curses the hunter that may you never have peace of mind. May you always suffer the way this bird is suffering right now, feeling the anguish of her loss. This is a serious curse. Like, never be peaceful is a very strong word. And this is what happens in anger, right? We're so quick. And then when the anger calmed down, again, this is what happens with anger. So much regret. Here he has been spending years meditating, years doing japa, years purifying his mind. And sure, he felt compassion for the bird, but he didn't feel any compassion to the hunter, giving this kind of a curse. It's like, so this, why did I do that? Why did I do that? Why did I do that? I could really not made progress. Here I thought some progress have now started rather than a thing for it. But still I do this, and then it is the sense of failure. We can all relate to this. We try so hard. Why? Why did I ruin it? And in his anguish, Naraji comes back at that point in time and tells him, take it as the Lord's will for the verse that you compose. And interestingly, his curse wasn't just a may you suffer. It was a proper Sanskrit verse set to proper meter, exact grammar to a tune. Like in the mood of anger, it was perfect poetry. If you read any version of the Ramayana, so poetic. And I was noticing myself when I was, because now we're so used to WhatsApp, it's ridiculous actually. When I was reading the Ramayana's poetry, it's like, it's slow. Because now we're so used to just get to the point, just get to the point. But Ramayana is poetry. They take this sweet time getting to where they need to get to. But this poetry was done in anger, and it explains the sorrow or grief of loss and separation. And so Naraji said, take it as a indication that it was meant to be for this meter that you've created this poetry in is going to be the meter that now you write the entire Ramayana in. And a lot of the Ramayana is this. What? Suffering of loss and feeling of separation. And so if any of you don't know the story, then you do it super quickly. It's like those Diwali videos where they do the whole Ramayana and doom. Don't worry, we're going to be doing it extensively as well. So the born of the Ikshvaku dynasty, Sri Ramchandraji, is this perfect person, which we already saw. Sita ji is born as his consort. Again, these words don't get used in everyday language, right? Who says this is my consort? Only Lord Vishnu. Sita ji is born as his consort, and they meet very young, 16. They are married, and they go back to Ayodhya. When Dasharath Maharaj decides to hand over the kingdom to Ramchandraji, KK, one of the queens, who is the mother of Bharat, Ram's brother, decides this will not do. My son should be the king, and as long as Ramchandraji is around, nobody's going to look at my son. So I have to remove him from the scene so that my son can get attention, and exiles Rams to the forest for 14 years. She thinks 14 years would be enough for anyone to forget. Actually, 14 days is enough for most people to forget. It's true. Ram happily accepts the exile. And even though it was meant only for him, Sita goes along with him, and so does his brother Lakshmi. They live very happily in the forest for 13 years, which is bulk of the exile. On the 13th year, Ravana, I'm skipping minor details. Well, you know what minor details. Ravana kidnaps Sita. And she's in Lanka for a significant amount of time. Because it happens in the 13th year and the 14 years are finished. So close to a year, potentially. When we get to that part of the story, I'll give you exact duration. And so there's this separation for the first time when Sita is kidnapped. Ramchandraji, with an army of monkeys, goes to Lanka, fights Ravana, destroys him, wins back Sita, and they go back to Ayodhya. 14 years of exile is over. They're living very happily for about a year. Didn't last long. When rumors, gossip, all of this leads to Sita ji being sent away again. This time, it's very long. something else. Love and Kush were like 16 when they met their father. And when they meet again after 16 years of being sent away, on the day that they meet, Sitaji withdraws from her physical form. So they separated again. So there's a lot of separation in the Ramayana story. And really understanding that pining. And so in a way, it's a beautiful romance. But more than a romance, it's our divinity, which is the essence of who we are, and the feeling of being separated from the divinity, living this life now as physical beings. As we live these lives, very physical beings, very emotional beings, very social beings. In the back of the mind, there's this nagging feeling of something's missing. And then we distract ourselves from that feeling, and then come back again. Something's missing. Something's not quite complete. Don't feel fulfilled the way I thought I would. And the number of times people say that to me. Like they got the job, I thought I'd be happier than I am. Fell pregnant, I thought I'd be happier than I am. Getting married, I thought I'd be happier than I am. It's interesting that we reach the things we aspire to reach and still have the feeling of some things we're missing something. And so that feeling of separate is this missing that's so prevalent. And then that feeling of separate is grief. Even if you think about it physically, if we were to lose not even a limb, of course that would cause grief, but if suddenly we lose a capacity to do something, there's grief, even just on the physical. And then when it's something that's so intrinsically me, that's my essence, and I feel disconnected from it, it's a root cause. The feeling of being separated from our divinity is the root cause of all our suffering. And so what was Valmikiji's curse? You will never find peace. We didn't get cursed, so we can find it. But we're feeling it. We're feeling this. Just want peace. Just want to be at peace. So if we really want it, we'd be willing to pay the price for it. So this is where, in the Valmiki Ramayana, the story starts. At this point where Valmikiji has composed this verse, felt this pain of separation, and then felt regret or curse, and then sits down and thinks, to purify himself completely, he's going to read the Ramayana to not only glorify Ram, but to be able to reconnect completely to that divinity which is in him. The Ramayana in Valmiki's Ramayana actually has 3 different names. Not enough that there's so many different Ramayans. Even one Ramayana has 3 different names. So Ramayana is one name. And the name Ramayana is the abode of Ramchandji. And so believed that Ramji actually lives in this story. Very much like in the Bhagavatam, where Krishna lives in the Bhagavatam. And the other is Sita Charitra. which means the glory of Sita Ji. Because you can't have Ram's story without Sita. And even though he's praised extensively, she's not praised enough, in my opinion. Or maybe it doesn't matter how much you praise her, it's not enough. It's her ability to withstand, her ability to sacrifice, her ability to endure, but most importantly, her ability to love is just phenomenal. I have to do a talk for Navratri on the very well-known saint, Mirabai, who's so well known for loving Krishna. If you see the life of Sita, it's as much love. Yet she's not known. She's not known to have that same intensity of love as Mirabai. I mean, anyone familiar with the culture, you say Mirabai straight away. Image that comes to you is devotee, filled with love. You say Sita, the image that comes to us is different, depending on how much we've heard and how much we've understood. To me, when we say Sita, the image that comes to me is wow. Because when you reflect on her, really, she's the epitome of love, the embodiment of love, ideal of love. So Valmiki composes the Ramayana, and it's 24,000 verses. The Bhagavad Gita is 700. Ramayana is 24,000 verses. And he thinks, now who's going to remember this? Because you must remember it's pre-printing press days. And this composition was all in his head. And it had to be maintained. So there were two young boys living in his ashram by the name of Love and Kush. For those of you who are already familiar, it's Ramchandraji's son, who he doesn't know he has. And Love and Kush don't know that. Ram is their father. But they're living in the ashram. And so who does he teach these 24,000 verses to? Love and Kush. And he makes them the guardians of the Ramayana. And so as the guardians of the Ramayana, they go around from party to party, puja to puja, singing these 24,000 verses. You would think people would get bored, but no, they were really good at it. Every time they started singing the Ramayana, they had people sitting on the edge of their seat, listening to them. Until in one event, Ramchandraji himself hears them singing the Ramayana. And when they're singing it for him is when the story starts. In Valmiki Ramayana. Not in Tulsi. In Tulsi Ramayana, I just want to show you this much of the book goes before the story starts. In fact, Guruji has written in his commentary that when he first started reading Tulsi Ramayana, he kept thinking, when's the story start? Because in Tulsi Ramayana, first there's Namayan, not Ramayan, Namayan, which is the glory of Ramchandraji's name, which is quite a bit. Then there is all the reasons why Ramchandraji took birth. Then there's the four gods and how Ramayana is being taught in the four gods. Then It's the story of Lord Shiva. Then Ramayana starts. So I've been getting grief that I'm taking too long to start the Ramayana. I'm just following the tradition. Ramayana takes a while to start. But since you're so impatient, Ram was born. Happy? It started. We will start, and you'll go back to all the various things that I'm skipping, because they're so beautiful. They really, really so beautiful. And again, like when I did the Mahabharata, I'm really amused because you'll all know the story. It's not like you'll need to know the ending. It's not like the spoiler alerts. Okay, so in the Ikshvashu dynasty lineage, Dashrath Maharaj stands out as one of the best kings. It is described, the Ayodhya that Dashrath Maharaj ruled is described as. Many things we'll be able to relate to. Nobody needed to lock their doors because nobody ever stole anything. Actually, a lot of places, well, maybe not now, but at least 20 years ago, a lot of when we migrated to Australia in the country towns, nobody locked their doors. In fact, I remember going to the supermarket and the key was in the car and the engine is on outside of the supermarket because the person just ran in to pick up what they wanted and then came back out and drove again. Like the key is in the car with the engine on and the person's not in the car. That's how safe it is. Nobody is going to take anything that isn't theirs. We can relate to this. Ideal kind of society. Well, yeah, maybe not in Hong Kong. But we know that such places exist. Even till today, there might be a few towns that are like that. Maybe not that they don't want to take it, but everybody knows everyone and you can't take it because they know you got it. But we can remember a time when people just wouldn't take. This is the bit that's hard to believe. No one ever lied. Imagine a kingdom where no one ever lied. So this is really the standard of morality is exceptionally high. So then if you look at it from a political point of view, then there was 100% employment, there was excellent infrastructure, every single kid was literate. Like these are the kind of ways of assessing a society. All of that's actually written. Not in Tulsi Ramayana as much, but in Valmiki Ramayana, all this. And the planning is phenomenal. Full on maps are given of what the city looked like. So that's why they say the scriptures are not just spiritual knowledge. Like you can do town planning based on where your deal was. And so everything was perfect. He was extremely successful as the king because the city was, it couldn't get smoother. Yet, something was missing. This is, remember I told you, this is the theme of the Ramayana. Even though everything, so imagine being the king, city where nobody lies, nobody steals, everyone's happy, everyone's cooperative. What could possibly upset you? He didn't have any kids, children. He didn't have an heir to the throne. Something's missing. No matter how much you have, something's missing. And it's interesting when I meet different people. Often people will name names to me that person's so happy. Like, look at their lives. Of course, they only see us. they think, poor me, I don't have everything manifest. Even though physically they might have the same amount of wealth and the same amount of status, they'll feel they're lacking something. And the person that they mentioned, because I have inside scoop, I know what that person is lacking as well, what their grievance is, what their heartache is. They don't know each other's. They're thinking the other person's so happy and everybody is saying, only me, only I'm suffering, only I have this thing missing in my life. And whatever thing is missing in your life, that's what you think is the most important. And so again, when people are talking to me, they say that when it's money problems, that's really the worst. You mustn't disagree with them when they say something. Somebody else will come in and they'll say, and you know, husband and wife are not getting along, that's the worst. That heartache, you do, nothing's as bad as that. Third person comes along and they'll say, when there's pain, there's nothing worse than being in pain. See? What's the worst? Whatever you're going through. Because you're going through it. That's the worst. So for Dashrath Maharaj, he wanted to have children. So he was advised by his guru, Sage Vashishta and Sage Vamana, to do an Ashwamedha Yajna. This Ashwamedha Yajna comes up a lot in any Purana you'll also read. We saw it quite often in the Mahabharata, so we know the concept of an Ashwamedha. I'm still not 100% convinced why they had to do it, but it gave them a lot of punya, it definitely gave them a lot of power. So only after doing the Ashwamedha Yajna was he able to request to do a Putra Kameshwari Yajna. What does that mean? You do a yajna where you can get children. They were actually recipes in the Vedas. Do tat tat tat, and you will get. Do tat tat tat, and you will get. Like literally recipe. Like today, if you want, what shall we want? Gulab jamun. Recipe. Follow. You'll get it. Apple pie. Recipe. Follow. You will get it. But they were rituals you could do to get whichever desire you want fulfilled. Whether it was a good desire or not such a good desire also. Those ones were also given. And then up to you now, what you want to do. So, Dashrath Maharaj did this Putra Kameshwari Havan. And another beautifully fascinating thing in Taitra Yuga. So when did the Ramayana happen? According to the astrological information given to us in the Ramayana, because they describe everything. They describe the position of planets when Ramchandraji was born. They describe the position of the planets when he was named. They describe it. And astrologically, if you plug that into the computers today, Ramayana has happened 7,000 years ago. Because they would have named one comet, and comet come 7,000 years ago. Something like, today when I listen to some talks and they'll be mentioning, now that we're in lockdown in COVID, so it happened at that point in time. Or so they've mentioned astrologically what's happening then, and it dates back to 7,000 years. 7,000 years ago, when they did a havan, the Devata would physically appear to receive the offering. Wow. We think we've made progress. We've not made progress. We make the offering and we don't even know if we're pronouncing Devata's name right anymore. So when the havan was complete, Agni physically appeared with a bowl of payasam. Payasam is a milk pudding, saying that it has been charged and whoever drinks it will be able to conceive. So in Tulsi Ramayana, Dashrath Maharaj divides it half gives half to Kaushalya and half to Keiki. And Keiki and Kaushalya give quarter of theirs each to Sumitra. And Kaushalya has Ram, Keiki has Bharat, and Sumitra has twins, Lakshman and Shatrughan. And it's believed that the half that came from Kaushalya, that's why Lakshman is always with Shatrughan. And Ram. Lakshman is always with Ramchandra. And Shatrughan, because that half came from Keiki, he's always with Bharat. And so they were a perfect match. They were meant to be together, and so these two brothers are just always together. This is in Tulsi Ramayana. In Valmiki Ramayana, it's very clear. Dasharatha Maharaj divided it into half and gave half to Kaushalya. Then the second half, he divided it into half again, gave a quarter to Keiki and a quarter to Sumitra. And so it's clearly written that when all four brothers were the avatars of Vishnu, but the percentage, Ramchandraji was 50, Bharat was quarter, and Bharat and Lakshman and Shatrughan is 1/8, 1/8. Meaning how much it manifested the ability to see divinity, to embody divinity, to display divinity. In a sense, it's like the example that is given is light bulbs, 60 watt, 100 watt, 1000 watt. Ram's the brightest star in the sky. And it's not 100. So many people will say, because in Krishna's birth, Krishna's 100. So this little tug of war that happens, Krishna is more powerful than Ram. Pray to Krishna, don't pray to Ram. All four of them collectively were all that one avatar, Vishnu avatar. This is in there's slight different variations, but Ramchandra is definitely avatar. And when he's born, the description of his beauty is pages long. But everything is described as blue. He's as soft as a blue lotus, as resplendent as a blue sapphire. Compassionate as a cloud. I don't know why cloud is used. Light, radiant, and soft. The description is given. So we're going to pause here. He was born to Dasharatha and Kaushalya as a result of the Putra Kameshwari Yagna. Now, why was he born to Dasharatha and Kaushalya is one of the backstories that we have missed. Dasharatha Maharaj and Kaushalya were Manu and Shatarupa in their last lives. So we see this often. We see this often that the Santa, saints and sages, could see the last lives of the people. And so Dasharatha Maharaj's last life, he was Manu. Who's Manu? First man. Shatarupa, first woman. A little bit different to the Bible story where they were created at the same time. For the purpose of procreating. So not only Manu and Shatarupa were created, many others were created. But these two were created first. A few others were created, and then go procreate. Literally was the instruction given to create population on the planet. Manu and Shatarupa lived thousands of years. As scriptures advise that now youth, energy is there, and understandable that we want to enjoy, explore. Body has energy. And then as the body matures, the mind should mature with it. So when the body loses some of its energy, we should be able to let go of wanting to do the same daredevil things. When body loses some of its youthfulness in terms of appearance, we should have the ability to let go of that vanity. So basically, we should act our age. This is considered mature. The mind should mature with the body to be able to let go of things. Because eventually, we want to be able to focus on the mind on that which is beyond the body. So as the body grows and the body loses things and you let go of it, now the mind's more free to focus on that which is beyond the body. But if body grows and I'm still holding on to vanity and I'm still holding on to, wanting to be daredevil or clubbing every weekend, how to let the mind focus on that which is beyond the body? It's still very, very full with desires and extrovertedness. So Manu and Shatarupa, who lived 1,000 years, should really have outgrown everything. But they realized they hadn't. This is another thing. Unless you make it a conscious point to do something, you do. I've noticed even with as simple as drinking water. You're supposed to drink 6 to 8 glasses a day to remember to drink it. Otherwise, how much water did you drink today? Oh, I forgot. Unless it's really hot outside, but we don't go out into the heat. We live in these wonderfully AC or even in terms of cleaning. I think I'll get to it. When you don't make time, not conscientious, suddenly the pile is so big. Like when the kids go away to college and their laundry doesn't get done until they're on their last pair of underwear. Unless you make it a point to do something, it just doesn't get done. And so interestingly, we think at some point we'll change. Change what? Whatever it is we want to change. Maybe I'm a bit careless. At some point I'll become responsible. Just it will happen. How will it happen? Just. At some point I'll become less irritable and moody. Hasn't happened. But we think it will happen. At some point, I'll become incredibly forgiving. Unless we make it a point to do something, it doesn't happen. If we want to be more disciplined, we have to consciously work at it. We want to be more forgiving, we have to consciously work at it. We want to be less judgmental of people, we have to consciously work at it. We want to be more patient, we have to consciously work at it. We want to be happy, we have to consciously work at it. But people really assume one day I'll be happy. Just it will happen. One day my life will be filled with love. How? Unless we consciously work at it. 1,000 years wasn't enough, Madhu and Shatarupa, to think, okay, now I should, stop wanting fine dining and all the rest of it. Upgrades to business class. Recently I got upgraded, which is why I remember it. It was only a 1 hour flight. So after 1,000 years, they consciously decide enough's enough. They leave the palace and they go into the forest to do tapas. Now, just before they go into the forest to do tapas, they had 2 sons and 3 daughters. One of their daughters is Devahuti, who Bhagwan came as her son, Kapil Muni, which they know about in this 1,000 years that has happened. So now they go into the forest. Side note, but you'll see why I said it in 2 seconds. So they go into the forest. Now they enjoyed for 1,000 years. They should do tapas for at least 1,000 years, right? But Bhagwan's not so demanding. They do tapas for a significant amount of time, and Bhagwan appears in front of them, but not physically, as a voice, and says, I am pleased with your tapas and grant you a boon. What is it you would like? So firstly, they bow down, and the boon they ask for is, we'd like to be able to see, because it was just a voice that they heard. Actually, boon done, right? Because he appears. Shankara, Shakra, Chaturbuddha form. He appears in his pictures we see drawn in calendar art. Why? Why is that funny? And they are telling Bhagwan how grateful they are to be able to see his beautiful form. And this is a cool thing. The minute they hear his voice, because when you're doing tapas, then literally you become skin and bones because you're fasting. When you're living in the forest, so the skin becomes all a little bit not so soft. And the hair also, no beauty parlors. So everything becomes a little bit like, forest dwelling people. But the minute they hear Bhagwan's voice, they once again resplendent, beautiful. In the presence of divinity, all beauty is regained. Here it's physical. The idea is in us. The minute we able to find that vision or that voice of divinity, our beauty is re-nourished, regained. And so then they don't count him being seen physically as a boon, and they asked, it would be nice if we had a son like you. Are you thinking they left household life after 1,000 years, went and meditated in the forest and did tapas, and when they get to ask for a boon, they ask that they come back as husband and wife to have a kid. Why? We all do this. It's interesting. We go through so much discipline. We go through so much heartache, and then people who will diet and fast, and then what do you want? Like chocolate cake. Which means the desire is not gone. Your reward is whatever it is you consider your reward. If you consider it to be a reward, your desire is not gone. So why would they ask this? Remember I said their daughter, Kapil Muni, was one of them. Maybe they thought, but why came to my daughter as a son? What about me? Which is so often what we do. So-and-so went to Maldives. I should go. So-and-so got whatever, hair implants. I should get. Whatever it is. It might not be something like that. It might be a new car. It might be a new job. It might be We hear somebody else has it. We never wanted it. Now that somebody else has it, suddenly we want it. It's like in the house, sometimes that toy is lying there collecting dust for a whole 6 months. The visiting kid comes and picks up that toy to play with, and suddenly your kid wants to play with that toy only. He hasn't touched that toy for 6 months. But now that somebody else wants it, it suddenly looks very appealing to you. So interesting, our minds, right? Like, check, do you really want it? Or do you just want it because somebody else has it? Why are we like that? Why do we just want it because somebody else has it? Let them have? No. Why should they have? I should also have. Sometimes the elder generation is so honest this way. Like I'll say to one of these auntie type people that, so what if you don't have it? They have it, I should have. But you don't want, doesn't matter. If I don't want it, I should also have it. So, number one, we don't get something until we consciously work at it. Even after consciously working at it, not necessarily successful in attaining it. Not so easy to get rid of desire. It lingers. It might have been a more altruistic desire. Maybe it wasn't, I want what somebody else wants. Maybe it was, I got to see this form of the Bhagwan. But nobody else got to see it. So if Bhagwan's born as my child, everyone else will also get to see it. Maybe it was that. After purifying the mind so much, maybe it was this wanting to share whatever they received, whatever blessing it is. Then, so nice to think that both are possible, and so nice to know, where am I? Which one am I doing? And then ultimately, usually in Bhakti Shastra, it will always help. It only happened because the Lord wishes it. The Lord didn't wish it, it won't happen. Why did Valmiki curse the hunter? Lord wished it, so he can compose that verse. Why did they ask for this boon? Lord wished it, because he himself wanted to be born. Then that's your punchline. Ramayana. Why it happened? Lord wished it. We don't need to do story. Anything that happens in your life, first. It is the Lord's wish. It is for the best. Bhagwan, this is all very cute dialogue back and forth. Again, when you read Ramayana, and somebody had mentioned once that Mahabharata's quality is so different to the Ramayana. This bit's true. A lot of the quality in the dialogue in the Mahabharata is so intense. You did, you said, your karma will come back to bite you. Here it is. It's a lot of the dialogue in the Mahabharata. There's a lot of the dialogue in the Ramayana. It's very playful banter. So they said, we want a son like you. But one says, nobody's like me. Yeah, then you come. So then saying, oh, you want me to come as your son, we cannot say like that. Like this is this back and forth is very more Korean drama type. Not intense Hollywood prime time. So Bhagwan, Lord Vishnu, agrees to be born as their son. Again, when I hear the story of the Ramayana, you can do the comedy version of the narration of the Ramayana. I've heard one speaker say, the Devatas in heaven, they got no other job to do. They just wait around for these things to happen, and then they all collect and they shower flowers. You need to give them another job to do. But But here the Devatas didn't shower flowers just yet because Ramchandraji is not born. They got very, very, very excited and they gathered together in the excitement, and it was just like a yes, Vishnu is being born. Now, why were the Devatas in the heavens so excited that Vishnu is going to be born as Ram? Because Ravana was already born. On earth. So Ravana had done immense tapas. Phenomenal if you think of Ravana's tapas. Really, as far as tapas goes, Ravana would be in your top 5 category. Why? He had 10 heads. He would cut off one head every day as an offering in his puja. You might think I don't have 10. I cannot cut off every day. When he got to the 9th head, next morning, he still cut it off. It's making us look pretty bad. Won't cut anything in them. Flower. Yo. We don't give up ourselves. Right? That's the point. Nobody needs to cut their head. I am not advocating any kind of harm. How much do we give up ourselves? Sometimes we do puja in the ashram monthly. Many of you are familiar. The person who takes the puja is supposed to make the garlands, get the prasad, help to set it all up. It's not a lot of work. Okay, sure. Could take, if you're a simple kind of person, take 4 hours. If you're well planned. If you're not well planned, and if you would like to do it more, it could take a good whole day, depending on how you do it. So often people will say, I want to do the puja, can't do the flower. Can I just give you the money? I'll be like, And I'll just order the prasad, it will get delivered. You receive the delivery and keep the box there for me. How much are we willing to give up ourselves? And yet there's other times when people will say, I don't know how to, but I'll come and sit with you and you show me how. Then it definitely takes the whole day. But they're willing. How much are we willing to give ourselves, of ourselves, for anything determines how much we want it, right? Even in a relationship, whether it be parent, child, sibling, spouse, the relationship is as good as how much you give of yourself to that relationship. You take the other person for granted and you're not giving time, you're not giving understanding, you're not giving attention, the relationship is going to falter. Our relationship with divinity requires us to give of ourselves. So the Devatas, Ravana did tapas and he gave of himself. And so he was very powerful because he really did give of himself. And so when he got the boon from Brahmaji of what is it you would like, of course, all these asuras, the first thing they ask for is, I don't want to ever die. Again, this dialogue Brahmaji has had so many times, he must be on repeat. I cannot grant you that boon and ask for any boon to make it as difficult to kill you as possible, but I cannot grant you that you cannot die. And so then each asura comes up with one very innovative way of how they can't be done. But actually what they're doing is determining how they're going to be killed. Some of them go through really elaborate. I think that Hiranyakashipu was the most. I can't be killed outside, I can't be killed inside, I can't be killed in the air, I cannot be killed in the land, I cannot be killed by weapons, I cannot be killed by hands, right? Yeah, because that's why it was named. Cannot be killed when the sun is shining, and it cannot be killed when it goes dark. He came up with one really long list. On the loophole. Like the asuras are really good at complicating things. Bhagwan's really good at finding the loophole. But Ravana didn't complicate this. Ravana's request was, cannot be killed by the devatas, yakshas, and gandharvas. Who are these people? All the heavenly denizens. He left out humans altogether. Left out animals altogether. In Valmiki Ramayana, that's the wording. In Tulsi Ramayana, he says, anybody other than man or monkey. But actually, he doesn't specify man or monkey, because basically, when you're saying man or monkey can kill you, he just said, none of the heavenly denizens can kill me. And that was his arrogance. His arrogance was, man, I can kill man. And so now, Lord Vishnu is coming as a man. The devatas are having a party. Because he found the loophole. And then, so this is another thing we do. When we want Bhagwan's help, the Lord's help to solve our problem. So we'll say the prayer, now you solve my problem. That's not the way it works. Please know that's not the way it works. Here, they had prayed. People on earth had prayed, relief from Ravana. The heavenly denizens have prayed for relief of Ravana. And Bhagwan is now coming to relieve everyone of Ravana. And Brahmaji tells them all, if he's going to do your work, you can't just send him to do your work. You have to go with, and you have to do the maximum amount you can. He'll do the rest. So even when we ask, please help me with this problem, and then we say he's not answering, but are we doing our bit? Are we doing the maximum amount we can? Only then he'll do the rest. Otherwise, we'll become lazy. We won't go. And so all the heavenly denizens also started taking birth on earth. How blessed is the earth that all the devatas, one by one, started taking birth on earth. As Ramchandraji is going to come, they have to also be here to help. And oh, sorry, I forgot one bit. When Manu and Shatarupa asked, can you please come as my son? Then Shatarupa specifies that I want to know that you are divinity. I want to truly enjoy experiencing divinity as my own. I want to be able to savor each moment, knowing, recognizing, appreciating, and adoring you as the divine. As she finishes her sentence, Manu says, no, I don't want to remember. If I remember that you are Bhagwan, I'll always be bowing down and I won't get to enjoy you. I want to forget and I want to just love you. This is an important point to note, because as the story of the Ramayana unfolds, when difficult times arrive, Dashrath Maharaj, who has forgotten who Ram is, suffers terrible separation. And Kaushalya, who remembers who Ram is, doesn't. She suffers, but not as much. And so Bhagwan came to Manu and Shatarupa, and one feels immense separation, this theme of us feeling separated. Even though both are separated, one suffers far, far more than the other. And similar to the Mahabharata, the feminine is described as the intellect. The husband Manu is described as the mind, which I find very interesting because generally mind is described as feminine because it's emotional, and intellect is described as masculine because it's logical. But every time they personify, it's women who represent the intellect, and men who represent emotion. So which one's true? Each to their own. We pause here for today. Any questions?